Hello again, Tom Maguire. I just want to do a quick book review on something called The Prosperity Paradox by Clayton M. Christensen. He is the guy who wrote the book, How Will You Measure Your Life? That one went down really, really well. It's really quite famous, based on, I think, a speech he delivered to Harvard students. It came at a time of sort of intense personal difficulty. I think he was overcoming cancer, or the same kind of cancer that killed his father, I do believe. And it just kind of made him much more mindful of how he would kind of want to measure his life and kind of living up to his own sort of expectations. And he kind of decided to sort of share these insights with his students, with his family, with the people he loved and cared about. And it kind of made for a really, really good book. I don't think I've ever reviewed that one before, but it may well be one of those ones that I kind of read again at some point and probably do a review on. But at the minute we're doing this one. This one's much more recent, The Prosperity Paradox, How Innovation Can Lift Nations Out of Poverty. And it basically kind of talks about why so many kind of economic interventions to try to lift places out of poverty. You get these kind of charities set up in kind of Africa, putting wells in place to get water to people. And it's the old story, isn't it, of sort of worrying about where your charitable donations are going to. He's basically arguing that when you throw money at poverty, it doesn't work. The money just gets soaked up and then people are kind of left back at square one. So by quite a basic concept, really, something that if you've read anything about economics, much about personal development, you'll already have a pretty good idea around that concept, to be fair. But Clayton M. Christensen does go into some good detail. If you get the audiobook, there's a PDF as well that you can print out, which has got quite a lot of useful information on it. So he talks about some companies that were set up that I'd never heard of before. One's called Tolaram, which was a company that came up with instant noodles in Nigeria and apparently made a real difference there. So I'm going to read some of this off the sheet because I'm not a computer brain. I don't have the memory to remember these kind of details, but I want to share some of it with you. So you've got Tolaram, a company I've never heard of before. And so it says in the PDF that with tens of millions of Nigerians living on less than $2 a day, the ability to afford 3 meals a day is difficult for many in the country. Tolaram came in. They now sell more than 4.5 billion packets of noodles in Nigeria each year. Company runs 13 manufacturing plants. It's enabled tens of thousands of jobs, invested over 350 million in Nigeria, contributes tens of millions of dollars to the Nigerian economy annually. Before the company began selling noodles in Nigeria, few Nigerians had even heard of the food before. So there's one innovation. Celtel, it's a mobile telephone company, a pay-as-you-go mobile phone service that enables customers to purchase cell phone minutes for as little as 25 cents. So in 2000, of the 800 million people who lived in Africa, approximately 2.5%, fewer than 20 million had mobile phones. The Democratic Republic of Congo, for instance, with a population of more than 55 million people, had only 3,000 phones. There were fewer than 1 million telephone lines for Nigerians, 126 million people. So the impact of this on the telecommunications market in Africa today adds more than 150 billion to the African economy annually. By 2020, the industry is forecast to support 4.5 million jobs, provide 20.5 billion in taxes, and add more than 214 billion of value to African economies. The proliferation of mobile telephony has also enabled other technologies such as M-Pisa's mobile money platform and micro-insures insurance services. It's now being leveraged as an education platform and used to provide mobile health services as well. So Galans, I'd never heard of them before. Microwave ovens, basically, an inexpensive microwave oven for less than $45 for the average Chinese citizen. I won't read through all of that, but it's these things kind of sound a bit boring, but they are actually quite interesting in this book. It was kind of really new stuff to me. Theodore Biotechnologies urine malaria test, a non-blood malaria test that costs less than $2 and gives results in less than 20 minutes. Ford Motor Company, of course, anyone who's into personal development will have heard of Ford, with the Ford Motor Company and the story of him. Very significant. Again, tells the story of how many times Mr. Ford failed before he actually managed to succeed, and how much of a massive impact that's had right away in America and up until today. So I have looked at a couple of reviews on Goodreads, and there are some criticisms of this book. There are people saying that he doesn't really account for the proper reasons for poverty, etc., etc. And I kind of get that. I like to hear a balanced view on these things. I don't suppose that Clayton M. Christensen is 100% correct in what he's talking about. But it is very interesting, and I think most of us do appreciate that when you throw money at situations of poverty, then quite often when you've got people who aren't educated, you know, just for example, building wells for people based on charitable donations or whatever, you build the wells, you leave them there, they then break down, people then don't have the skills necessarily to fix them and maintain them, and so the money just becomes wasted. So it's quite arrogant of us in the West, isn't it, to think that we're kind of, you know, we're well off and we're sort of virtue signaling and we care, and so we'll donate a load of money and then expect it to solve the problem. It just isn't. It isn't as simple as that. It isn't as easy as that, and we kind of wish it was, but it isn't. So he's really making the point that we need to help people to become educated, to become innovative, to come up with their own solutions. And it is based on a kind of entrepreneurial, business sense, capitalist system, unfortunately, for right or wrong. And, you know, we know that there are massive flaws in that system. We know that inequality is horrendous, and it's something that should be more and more balanced and eradicated. But we know that it's very, very difficult to do that. So it's very interesting. It's a really good book, I think. I found it quite easy to listen to. The narrator, I don't remember his name now. I will edit it in afterwards. He has narrated quite a lot of audiobooks over the years, some very famous ones. I quite like him. He's the sort of guy who, when I first heard on an audiobook, I kind of thought, whoa, he's got a bit of a whiny any kind of American accent in a way, but actually it doesn't take long before you get used to him, and he's very clear. He's actually very clear and easy to listen to. Similarly, I'm listening to a book at the minute that's narrated by an English bloke, and he's got a good voice, but he kind of almost whispers a little bit, and it can be quite hard to hear. Whereas the guy who narrates this book, very, very clear, works really, really well. He's quite famous in the world of audiobooks. So it's a good book. I recommend it. I just recommend of all these books that you keep an open mind and you come to your own kind of conclusions anyway. But very, very good. The Prosperity Paradox: How Innovation Can Lift Nations Out of Poverty, by Clayton M. Christensen. See you soon.